Guys, Meta has been going through some massive layoff initiatives in order to raise capital for AI. They're going all in on AI, and that means heads are rolling. But you don't just need to take my word for it. The CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, said, quote, "We believe a leaner operating model will allow us to move more quickly while also helping to offset the substantial investments we are making," end quote. Guys, it's not a surprise that AI is transforming the way that we do work. But what is not being talked about is how AI is being used in the firing process. And this is really becoming an issue for Meta because it turns out that AI may have been the primary driver in deciding who gets fired. In fact, there are allegations that Meta has 3 different AI systems that are actually making the decisions on who gets fired at the company. There are actually 26 plaintiffs right now that are alleging there's a massive discriminatory problem that's happening with these systems, these AI systems, in these layoffs. These plaintiffs are bringing a huge lawsuit accusing Meta of using AI software that discriminates against people with disabilities and those who took medical leave. That's right. And guys, this is not a small story. Nobody's talking about it, but this is not a small story. This is actually the first of its kind. It's a groundbreaking legal case that's gonna set precedent on how companies actually use AI and data to make firing decisions. And Meta is just first on the block. And today we're gonna talk about a little bit about the systems that are being used over at Meta, at least allegedly being used. And we're gonna talk about this case and why it's so important, because the reality is you're being monitored, you're being tracked, AI is being used to make decisions about whether you get to stay or whether you get to leave. And whether you like it or not, it seems pretty clear that's happening. In the case of Meta, that is what these 26 plaintiffs are accusing. So what's going on here? Well, basically they're saying that Meta is creating firing criteria based on various factors like productivity and AI token use. And on its face, guys, this actually makes a lot of sense. The company has a goal. We tell everyone what the goal is, and we set the expectations and the KPIs that they're expected to make. And if you don't make those cuts, well, you get laid off, you get fired. If the AI says that you're underperforming, you get let go. And on its face, it makes sense. And quite frankly, this is how I've run businesses in the past. I say, hey guys, for example, in the media company that I was running, I'd say, okay, you're gonna be an editor at the company. I expect that when I message you, you respond within 24 hours, just letting me know that you got it. And I expect work that's gonna be done within 72 hours. If you can't get that done, well, you're probably not gonna be here. Because the reality is, this is a funny thing, like I have a video editor that's working for me and be like, oh, well, the episode releases tomorrow, so I got it out in time. I'm like, well, no, because I have a copywriter, I have an uploader, I have a YouTube optimizer, I have graphics, I have my social media manager who has to get everything queued up. So actually, you're about a week late on your deliverables. In any event, it makes sense on its face. The problem here, and where this whole AI, KPI, AI productivity analysis falls apart, is when it actually violates federal and state laws that ban discrimination or retaliation against workers with disabilities, workers taking medical leave, or workers that are pregnant. Because the reality is, guys, you can't just blame AI when discrimination happens. And that, I think, is where this case, honestly, I think this case is gonna be big. It's not probably criminal, but in any event, it's a big deal. But guys, let's face it. On one hand, when you got girls sipping lattes, strolling into the workplace at 10 a.m. in like yoga pants, and then taking a lunch break at noon, and then sharing all their work habits on TikTok, you probably are not being productive. You probably need to go. On the flip side, if you get sick and you have to deal with a major illness, to get fired for that is pretty wickety whack, and that's why we have these federal laws in place. In any event, the lawsuit brought against Meta, it basically complains that there are 3 separate AI measures in place that are making these decisions on who gets fired. They have one AI measure in place called MetaMate, which is a large language model assistant. You can think of that as basically like an in-house ChatGPT that serves as an assistant for the employees. The second is an employee trained, quote, second brain, end quote. Now, this second brain is an AI device that has tracked workers' communications, documents, actions, etc., to see what they've been, basically seeing what they're up to. It's the second brain. How dystopian is that? Anyway, it's the second brain. The third is a productivity score, which is drawn from scanning keystrokes, reviewing screen content, emails, browser history, according to the lawsuit. So if you send fewer emails, if you write less code, if you use less tokens, you could get the boot. And one of those things I think is interesting is using less tokens, because there's this kind of concept or big push, especially in tech, to be, quote, token maxing. And we covered this in a video in the past. I'll post a link to the video here, where a company accidentally spent $500 million on AI tokens in 1 month, $500 million in spend in 1 month via token maxing. So what is token maxing? Well, that's basically when your company says, we want you to use as much AI as possible. This is how many tokens you're allotted. You need to use all these millions of tokens every month, every week. And if you don't, well, you're gonna get the boot. And it's kind of this interesting dichotomy where if the Meta bot, again, this is all alleged, we don't know how it's gonna roll out, but if the Meta bot decides, well, you actually didn't token max, Brad. Brad, why aren't you token maxing? GTFO, you are out. Karen, what were you doing? Why were you taking such a long lunch? Get out. You weren't clicking the right screens. You weren't clicking enough buttons here. I mean, like in the video game world, there's this concept called actions per minute, APM. That's basically tracks how many clicks, how many buttons, how many actions you're getting every minute. And like, for casual gamers, doesn't matter, but for the pros, they track APM, actions per minute. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Can you imagine getting called in by your boss like, Fred, I was tracking your mouse clicks today. Looks like you had 575 mouse clicks. Boy, those are rookie numbers. Ted over there, Ted's got 800 mouse clicks. Why aren't you clicking your mouse? We need you clicking your mouse more, Fred. Fred, click your mouse. Can you imagine that? How dystopian is that? Like, I mean, that is absolutely crazy. I mean, and again, for me, as a business owner, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You want to see who's the most active, who's getting the most button clicks in. But like, there's no way I would want to work in an environment like that. You're kind of seeing this manifest in Amazon warehouses too. And we've talked about this in videos in the past, where it's like, every single millisecond of your day is tracked for maximum efficiency. I cannot operate that way. I would just be like, that idea of having someone looking over your shoulder all the time, couldn't do it. What about you? What do you think? And by the way, this is kind of meant to be a discussion, because I don't know there's one right or wrong answer here. I get on the company standpoint, you want productive workers, but as a worker, you don't want all your buttons tracked, your button clicks tracked, A, and B, you don't want to get fired by an AI bot because you had, a colon issue. Absolutely crazy. In any event, Meta has completely denied the allegation, stating, quote, workforce management organizational decisions were made by people, not AI. They're saying it was not AI. And I got to say, I'm gonna wait to see how this whole thing plays out, but the idea that Meta was making firing decisions and AI was not involved at all seems insane to me, that they were not using AI to make these decisions. Firing 8,000 people, very complicated. That's a lot of people. Tough decisions need to be made. And one of the things that I like about AI is it's very objective. It's not subjective. It's not like, I really like the way that Janet looks in a blouse. Yeah, AI doesn't care. It's not, I had a great time playing poker with Jim the other night, or Lloyd likes the New York Knicks so he can stay. That's not happening. AI is saying, who's the most productive? What are the KPIs? Are they hitting them? I think that's actually a better way of making the decisions. However, if it leads to discriminatory impact, disparate impact, you could have a pretty severe, legitimate legal case. And again, this is a groundbreaking case, the first of its kind, and it's going to set the precedent for how companies are able to make firing decisions in the past. I would bet, and another thing that I think is important to note here is that there is this idea that AI is just going to replace all human labor. Humans are gone. AI can do all of this work. Humans are completely cooked. But in a case like this, what it's doing is it's exemplifying that there's a new problem that is caused by AI. There are new problems that are going to need to be solved by AI. Now, are you going to need such a large, robust HR department to make firing decisions? Probably not. You're likely going to be using AI tools and data and analytics to send filters. But what's going to need to happen, what these companies are going to need to have in place, is they're going to need to have human beings in place to make the final decision, to find the people that are on the edges, to look at, is this person potentially compromised by discriminatory impact? A very, very interesting case. We'll see where it goes, how high it goes, but it's the first of its kind, and I think it's a big deal. What do you guys think? Do you think AI should be involved in firing decisions? Do you think Meta was using AI for firing decisions? Do you think this is just a BS case, a company, a lawyer is just trying to get rich quick? What do you think is actually happening here, and where do you think it's going to lead? I'm definitely fascinated, and I'm going to be following the case. I think it's very, very interesting. We've talked a lot about how AI is being used in hiring decisions, but seeing it used in firing decisions, allegedly, and then resulting in a lawsuit, I think is pretty fascinating. So leave your comments below. If you have a good one, I'll pin it. I pinned you in the past. I'll pin you in the future. And I look forward to seeing your comments down below. Guys, if you like today's video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and go check out yesterday's video where we talk about how AI is completely flipping the finance world on its head. If you are in financial services or you are interested in financial services, that industry is being completely cooked right now by AI agents. We talked about it yesterday. Go check out the video, and I'll see you there. All right, boys, peace.